check beforehand. I'm on the Lyrics app, so I assume that I'm connected. I'm not sure how I can confirm that. Maybe Sarumi, maybe you can send me a text message to let me know is there connection taking place. And in the meantime, I'll chant Hare Krishna until I hear a ping on my phone. Okay, Hare Krishna. And assuming there is somebody there, welcome to our Dublin Sunday Feast. Oh, thank you, Sarumi. Just got your message. So welcome to the Dublin Sunday programme, being done online now for obvious reasons due to our little friend, the coronavirus. So I'll chant Hare Krishna for a few minutes. Okay, thank you. Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Rama Hare Krishna, Panam Vijayate, Shri Krishna Sankirtan Ki, Srila Prabhupada Ki, Om Ajana Tanamandasya Gananjana, Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai, Shri Guruve Namaha. Hare Krishna, everybody. I hope you're all keeping well during these unusual times. just take a drink of water there, because I've just noticed when you're chanting these kirtan bhajans on your own, you have to sing both parts of the mantra, not just the one. Okay. Yeah, I hope you're all keeping well, and keeping well and being able to remain Krishna conscious during these challenging times, let's put them like that. Challenging times, of course, not just for us, but for literally everybody on the planet. And of course, we don't know where things are going and what will happen. But we can always rest assured that Krishna is in control and Krishna has a plan. And as devotees, we surrender to that plan. That verse, actually, I quote a lot, Nayasha Kai Chidrajan, that nobody knows the plan of the Lord, but we do have confidence and faith that there is a plan, and that it may or may not be revealed to us in due course of time, but that whether it is or it isn't, it will be a good plan for all of us, all living entities. We, of course, living as we are in the material world, we're in a kind of a, excuse me, we're in a sort of preparatory stage and an educational stage in terms of our journey in Krishna consciousness. And although we generally accept that education in general is a good thing, there are parts of it that are less palatable than others, at least initially and externally are less palatable than others. That said, all of the educational aspects are to our benefit. So if we take regular education in schools, etc., we used to regularly get homework, and I was not a fan of homework in any way, shape or form, as I guess many students like me weren't. But I could still understand that it was good for you, and if you did your homework and if you did your revision, then you would do well in your exams, etc. So whatever our, relative or reaction that is based on what we think is nice or suitable for us isn't necessarily always the actual reality. So even things that we may perceive to be not so nice can actually be good for us, or in many cases are good for us. So like that with the plan of the Lord, we know that it will be good for us, even if some aspects of it, for whatever reason, don't appear to be as wonderful as we might like. So with that in mind, I just wanted to quote one verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam, which I think is kind of good for us in these particular times. So the Sanskrit is Naja Samudra Giraya Savanaspati Viruda Pahalanti Osajja Sarva Kaman and Vitutashyavai. And that is, as I said, it's from the Srimad Bhagavatam. Actually, I'll give you the verse reference later. The translation is that nature, let me just get the translation up actually. I didn't have the translation, I just had that Sanskrit. Just bear with me 1 second. Actually, I'll give the general understanding of that verse. Nature is beautiful and it's giving. And everything that we need, and I guess this is the kind of point that I think is relevant for us, all of us, not just us listening to this, but just in general for society, that everything we need, nature supplies. There is nothing that we need that nature does not supply. So it's all there. But nature also has a stringent reaction, and that's the word that Prabhupada uses, has a stringent reaction when it's misused or abused like that. And Prabhupada talks about that in the context of negative consequences when nature is misused, abused, etc. And it's interesting that prior to this whole thing happening, one of the big movements, and still is one of the big movements in the world now, is the green movement and their concerns about the climate change situation and all of that kind of stuff. But I was just thinking when I was reading this verse, and Prabhupada does give in his purport, he gives a list of difficult things that come as a result of not using nature properly. That what I thought was interesting was that that's no different than what the green movement are telling us in the context of the planet, that we're misusing it, we're abusing it in terms of, exploiting the resources, etc., and all of that kind of thing, that results in apparently the globe warming and greenhouse gases and all that kind of thing, and then that has negative consequences on us in terms of we saw earlier this year, before this whole thing really took off, was all the heavy fires in Australia, the worst ever on record that they've known. And there are so many examples of that where there's been negative reactions. So I just thought it was interesting in that context that you can see this verse and the point that Prabhupada's making in his purport is in line with also what the green movement would tell us in relation to the planet and the misuse of nature like that. So Srila Prabhupada, of course, then goes on to talk about many different things in relation to that, and he talks about that the stringent reaction of nature and the basic misunderstanding that we have that here in the material world, and we hear that professed many times by different people, that particularly the libertarians of this world, that we're free, independent living entities, etc. But Prabhupada explains in the purport to that particular verse that even though prison may appear nice, and I remember reading an article some years ago, about a prison in Norway, as it happens, and it was online and they were showing pictures of it, etc. And it's literally like a 5-star hotel. Everybody has their own room, they've all got internet and TV, and there's a a kind of leisure center in the prison, and everybody can go swimming and all of those things and do exercises, etc. There's a beautiful library in the prison. You can access whatever book you would like to read, and and you can go to there's educational facilities. You can educate yourself in whatever area you might like to enhance your education, and there are all counselling facilities and all that type of thing. So on the face of it, and of course a lot of people complain about those kind of prisons. They say, we should just throw them in prison, throw away the key, don't care about them, they've done wrong, etc. But the idea was that no, we treat them as human beings, treat them as responsible citizens, and then they may reciprocate accordingly. And ironically enough, the recidivism rate in Norway, I think, is the lowest in the world. In other words, the people who go through their prison system are much less likely to reoffend and go back to prison like that. So in that sense, at least from a relative perspective, their system kind of works. But Prabhupada was explaining that that's like this material world. Krishna gives us all facility. And actually, we can see, not for everybody in the world, of course, but for many people in the world, they do have, quote unquote, facilities like the Norwegian prison, where, they have nice material facility like that. But the goal is not then to misuse that or abuse that. It's to use it in the right way. And in the context of spiritual life, it's to use those material facilities in Krishna's service so as that we can ultimately leave the prison for good. So when we leave the prison, as in Norway, we don't reoffend and go back to prison. So likewise, when we leave this material world, i.e. we leave our bodies, that we'll be able to go back to the spiritual world, and not that we come back to prison, i.e. the material world. So it's a question of understanding those things in context. Because even though you have that prison in Norway where it's very beautiful and lots of nice facilities in it, the point is your freedom is still, like libertarians say, we're all free in this material world. No, we're like the Norwegian prison, that your liberty is restricted. So you may have the leisure center, you may have the internet, you may have the television, you may have your own ensuite room, etc., etc. But you are not allowed to go beyond the boundaries of the actual prison like that. your freedom is curtailed. So likewise, whatever facility we have here in this material world, our freedoms are curtailed because we have to be born, we have to grow old, we have to accept disease, and we have to die. Something that none of us essentially want to happen. Of course, Prabhupada explains that the fear of death comes from the misunderstanding that we are not eternal spiritual beings, because obviously as eternal spiritual beings, there is no such thing as death. But essentially, nobody wants to experience death like that. So we're not free. In that context, we're not actually free. So Prabhupada talks about that. So going back to the verse, everything is being supplied, but when things are misused and abused, we can also get negative results. So one obviously negative result that we're all experiencing now is this particular virus. And I think the last time I was speaking here, I talked about Srila Prabhupada referencing, nothing to do with this current situation, Prabhupada's left many years ago, but he was just referencing something else. But he made connection to an experience he had as a child, when there was a epidemic in Calcutta. One of these viral, I'm not sure exactly what it was, but a viral epidemic. And many people were suffering, and many people were dying on a daily basis from that. And Prabhupada made the connection between that and Harinam, chanting Hare Krishna, saying that some Babaji arranged a big mass kirtan in Calcutta. And as soon as that person did that, and many people joined, many people participated in the Harinam, big mass Harinam in Calcutta. The pandemic seemed to decrease, and soon after that it disappeared like that. So probably making a connection between the benefits of Harinam, and we understand that chanting Hare Krishna can achieve any result at all like that. But then I thought, because I had made reference to that the last time I was speaking, I thought I would continue on, which I didn't do the last day, which I think is an important point for us as aspiring devotees, and we're trying to please Krishna, because that's ultimately the goal, to please Guru and Krishna. So Prabhupada explains in that talk, after making that point about the pandemic being subdued, if you like, by the mass Harinam in Calcutta, he said, however, as devotees, we should never chant Hare Krishna for material benefit. That's an aparad, that's an offense against the holy name of Krishna. Krishna's holy name, as we understand, is non-different from him. So his name and his form are non-different. So therefore, if we're seeking material benefit by chanting Hare Krishna, we're directly seeking material benefit from Krishna. So it's like approaching the Lord for material benefit. And of course, as devotees, we know that is not the highest level of consciousness, or the highest level of, or the highest way to approach Krishna. We shouldn't be seeking material benefit. So Prabhupada explains that what we should be doing is we should be striving for, again referencing Srimad Bhagavatam, ahoitaki apratihata. And ahoitaki apratihata means that the two arguably most important qualities of the service that we render to Guru and Krishna, arguably the two most important qualities are that it is unmotivated. It has no motivation. So therefore, if we're chanting Hare Krishna to get rid of a pandemic, or to get rid of global warming, or to get rid of whatever the negative material thing is that we're experiencing, that's a motivation. We're motivated, that's a motivation. Therefore, it's not on the pure platform of devotional life, because we're seeking some kind of benefit from it and some desired result. So ahoitakiya pratihata, the other one, so unmotivated, it should be unmotivated, and the other one is it should be uninterrupted. And this is also an interesting consideration, because it's connected actually generally with motivation. Prabhupada gives the example that during the Second World War in Europe and other places, I guess, but he was particularly talking about Europe, he was saying how the churches would be filled with people during the Second World War. So the idea is that people, again, are in a fearful situation, a difficult situation, so they turn to God, which is a glorious thing. But again, ahoitakiya pratihata, there shouldn't be a motivation, and it shouldn't be interrupted. So the definition is now, if you go to churches, they're not so full. They're a lot less full, because the particular motivation that was pushing people to go has now passed. The Second World War, none of us remember, it's long since gone. So that particular motivation at that time was to end the war or whatever, but that now is no longer there. Therefore, there's an interruption in the service to God, because you're not seeking that motivation anymore. So Prabhupada just makes the point straight after, when he talks about the pandemic in Calcutta in 1898, I think it was, when he's talking about that's how it appeared to be solved. But although that's wonderful on one level, that shouldn't be our motivation for approaching Krishna. Our motivation, we should strive for our motivation to become ever more pure and ever more unmotivated and ever more uninterrupted like that. So, in that context, if we read Srimad Bhagavatam, all these incredible pastimes, they're always dealing with that type of issue, how to approach Krishna properly and how to do the right thing. And Prabhupada says in a few places actually throughout his purports that the prayers that different devotees, demigods, etc., that they offer to Krishna at any particular given time, that those prayers are actually the most important part of Srimad Bhagavatam. Because generally when devotees are offering those prayers, that they're being offered in the context of, if you take the example of Gajendra as an example, if you take that pastime in Srimad Bhagavatam, where Gajendra is an elephant, big, strong creature, but is in water, and his legs are in water. And then the crocodile is in the water. And even though the elephant is a much more powerful creature than the crocodile, because you're in the crocodile's domain, you're in the crocodile's territory, if you like, even a big, strong elephant can become compromised like that. And when you're in that situation, you just surrender. You surrender everything, and you just pray purely to Krishna. So Prabhupada's giving those examples that these prayers are the... And another part of the Bhagavatam, and this is interesting, again, just in the general context of this discussion, that you have the personality Vritrasura. And of course, the last part of Vritra's name is Asura. So of course, we know the word Asura means against Krishna, against the divine, and or the usual term we use is demons like that. But that pastime is really quite interesting, actually, because what happens is that, or what led up to his appearance, this demon's appearance, was that Indra had killed a Brahmin. The Brahmin's name was Vishvarupa, and Vishvarupa, he chopped his head off, just for the detail. And the reason that Indra did that, of course we know Indra comes up many times in Krishna's pastimes, the famous one of Krishna lifting Govardhan Hill, and again, because Krishna's father, Nanda Maharaj, was in anxiety that if we didn't worship Indra would get angry, etc., which he did. But Krishna was making the point that, baby Krishna was making the point to his father, that no, you don't have to worship demigods separately to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You just have to worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Anyway, we know that story and how that all concluded. So Indra, in this particular situation, Vishvarupa, who was supposed to be helping Indra and helping the demigods, Indra came to learn that Vishvarupa, whose mother, I think his mother came from a demoniac lineage, if you like. And this is the same throughout the Bhagavatam. We have Prahlad Maharaj was the son of Hiranyakashipu, etc. So this is not unusual. So I think it was his mother that was coming with that, from that lineage. So he had a soft spot, if you like, also for that lineage. So as well as Vishvarupa helping Indra and helping the demigods, he was also on the side, if you like, or at least on the side as far as Indra, because he wasn't aware of it. He was also helping the demons like that. And when Indra found this out, he was furious. And he saw him as a traitor, etc., etc.